everyone and welcome back to Brush and Bubbles. My name is Lara and today I'm going to be taking you all through another step-by-step painting tutorial. I'm so excited about today's painting because we're going to be creating a lion. This is such a fun painting for the whole family to get involved with. You can change up your colours if you want to, you can change up the composition. I'll just be breaking him down into manageable steps so we can all get creative from the comfort of your own homes. Before we jump into the painting, I just want to say make sure you hit the subscribe button to our channel so you're the first to know every time we have a new painting tutorial go live. And without further ado, let's jump straight into the painting where I'll be telling you what you'll need to create this at home. Thanks everyone, and I hope that you all really enjoy it. In front of me, I have my canvas, which I'm going to be painting on in landscape. But if you want to, you can always turn it around and you can paint in portrait instead. It's totally up to you. I've got a few different paintbrushes here. I've got a medium square shaped brush, a smaller one, and then a tiny little one. I've then got some kitchen towel to dab my brushes on, a glass of water, palettes to put my paints in, and then my acrylic paints. Once we get started, I'm going to show you which paint colours I'm going to be using for my painting, but please, like always, feel free to use any colours that you want. In my paint palette, I have a tiny bit of pink, some red, yellow, quite a lot of white paint, some blue, a little bit of green, and a little bit of black. Before we get started with our actual painting, I'm just going to move my canvas to the side and I'm just going to grab a bit of scrap paper and also a pencil because I just want to show you now how we're going to break down the shape of our lion. So this is nice and simple because we are just breaking this down into manageable steps and manageable shapes. So if this was my canvas, I'm going to start by drawing in the lion's face. Now we're going to be doing this with paint, but just for now I want to show you with pencil, and if you want to do the same, then please feel free to do so. So to start with, we want to draw an oval shape. So an oval shape is a little bit like a squashed circle. So I'm just going to draw an oval shape now in the middle of my piece of paper. Also, don't worry if this isn't neat because we're painting a lion and we want him to have loads of character, so it doesn't matter if it's wobbly or anything like that. So once you have your initial shape there, we're just going to draw little shapes coming off the side, which will be our lion's ears. We're then also going to do another smaller oval in the middle of this oval shape here and slightly more towards the bottom half. Once we have got that there, we're just going to do 2 circles for the eyes. And then within this oval here, we're just going to do a triangle shape, an upside down triangle shape with curved edges. And this is going to be the nose. So I've just curved all of the edges and I'm just filling it in. And we can then do a J shape and an opposite J shape for the mouth. Once we're happy with that, we can then work on the lion's mane. Now this is the fun bit because it's just basically squiggles. So at the top I'm going to do a squiggle coming out that side and a squiggle coming out that side. And I'm just going to bring this around either side. On top of the ears, squiggles can come down, pointing diagonally down on either side. Then we're going to bring it around that middle oval. What we then can do is go in and add a few extra details, which will just be the middle section of the ears. And we'll also give our lion 2 rosy pink cheeks here and here. And then to finish him off, we'll do 3 whiskers on either side coming out from those cheeks. So that is going to be our rough lion shape. And then what we can do afterwards is just draw the body coming down either side to come off the edge of our canvas. So to get started with our paintings, I'm just going to pick up one of my smaller brushes and I'm just going to start by mixing up a really pastel pale yellow colour. because this is the colour I'm going to use to draw out the same shape that we've got here on my canvas. And the reason why I like using a pale yellow is it's a nice pastel shade that we can easily go over with our other colours. So I'm just going to start by picking up a few scoops of white paint and just moving it over to a spare bit of my palette. And then I'm just going to pick up a little bit of yellow and give it a good mix. I then suggest adding a couple of drops of water into this paint mixture just because it makes the paint more fluid when we go to paint with it. So picking up some of this paint, I like to just dash any of the excess off just on the side so I haven't got too much on my brush. And then moving over to my canvas, we're just going to draw out the same shapes that we did here to start with. So I'm going to start with my oval shape for the lion's head. Again, don't worry about these lines too much just because we are going to be going over them with our block colours. These are just our initial shapes that we can start to map in there so we can see what we're doing. So I've just brought the camera in slightly so we can all see. I'm just carrying on with that oval shape. Again, like I mentioned before, don't worry if it's wobbly or wonky. We want our line to have loads of character and they're never really fully symmetrical anyway. So there we have the oval shape for the face. So what I'm going to do now is I'm now going to do the smaller oval within this at the bottom. This is where the mouth and the nose is going to be. Again, don't worry too much about this because we are going to be painting it all in with different colours. So we'll be going over these lines. I'm now going to do the little ears on either side. So I bring them in a little bit towards the head and then they scoop around so they're slightly wider and then come back in, if that makes sense. So they're a little bit narrower at the tip of the head and then go out a little bit so they're a bit wider and then go back in. Next, I'm just going to map in where I think the eyes are going to go. So I sort of find the corner of this oval here where the mouth will be, and then I just bring it out slightly and I'm just going to do a dot there and a dot roughly the same on the other side. Picking up some more paint, I'm just going to start mapping in where the mane is going to go. So I'm going to start here again, just doing that sort of wobbly line. It's a little bit like a wave. And because this is the mane and the hair sort of goes around in different directions, you can be quite free with this. You don't have to be neat with it at all. Some of the lines might be a little bit longer, some might be a little bit shorter. As long as you're sort of on the outside of this area, I'm going to point these wobbles down a little bit. So there we have that, and then I'm just going to draw in the inner part of the ears, just so I know where they will be. And then last but not least, I'm just going to draw where the body is, this bit going down. So I'm just going to find sort of this part of the mane and just do a sort of curved line going down that way to meet the bottom of the canvas. And then I'm going to do another one over here, slightly curved to meet the bottom. And then I'm actually just going to tilt the canvas up and I'm going to paint these lines so they wrap around the base of the canvas. If you've watched any of our other tutorials, you'll know that I like to paint the sides of the canvas so it looks nice and finished. Once you've got the main shapes of the body on your canvas, we're just going to give our small brush a little wash. We're going to move on now to creating the colour that we're going to use for the face and the body. So I'm just picking up my small brush again, and I'm just going to use this light yellow colour I've got as my base. I might even lighten it up slightly more just by adding a scoop more white in there. And I also want to make it a little bit more of an orange shade. So I'm just going to pick up the tiniest little bit of red and I'm going to add that in there and give it a good mix. So that's given me slightly more of a peachy tone, and I'm just going to add a few drops of water to it. Then whenever you're happy with your colour, we're just going to use this to paint in this middle section here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going over the line that I originally drew with my yellow paint. And I'm actually going to cover up the eyes just because I can go back over them with black paint, but I know roughly where I want them to be. And I'm not going to paint in this middle section here where the nose is going to be, because that's going to be a slightly different colour. So I'm just going to focus on this section in the middle of our oval. Once you've filled in the face, we can just take some more of this colour and just paint the outside part of the ears as well. So again, I'm just going over that original yellow colour that I had to draw with, just leaving the middle bit sort of free because that's going to be a different colour. I'm going to do the same with the other ear as well. Then taking the same colour, we're just going to fill in the body. So if you want to, you can use this brush or a smaller brush to do all of the bits in between the mane, but then if you want to fill in the rest of the body with one of your bigger brushes, you can always switch to a different brush. So I'm just filling in this gap where the mane meets the body, and then I'm going to go over that line again. And this whole middle section I'm going to fill in with the same colour. You can now take this opportunity to give the brushes that you've used a really good wash in your water. As soon as you're happy with that, we're now going to move over to our palette and mix up the colour that we're going to have for our mane. So I want this to be more of an orangey shade for my painting. So I'm just picking up one of my smaller brushes and I'm just going to mix up that colour now. So if you've got some of this original sort of lemon yellow shade that we created at the start to draw with, you can use that. But if you haven't, we're just going to mix some more up now. So I'm just adding some white and a little bit of yellow together, giving it a good mix. And all we're going to do to this is just add a little bit of red at a time. Keep giving it a mix until you're happy with the orange shade that you come up with. So I've just taken this orange colour and we're just going to do, like I've done here, we're just going to draw over that original design that we did with our yellow paint. So I'm just overlapping it carefully with my orange. And then as we meet the ears and the top of the head, I'm just being really careful just to bring the orange paint around them, just so it's nice and neat. Remember, if you don't want to go neat with your painting, you don't have to. Because we're painting a lion and because they're nice and fluffy in real life, if you decide you want to be a little bit scruffy and freer with your painting, you can definitely get away with it. Once you have finished your mane, you can then fill in the little areas that we've just left inside the ears. So I'm actually going to pop this brush down. I'm just going to pick up my smaller brush, but you can use any brush that you feel comfortable with. I'm just picking up some of this same orange colour and I'm just going to fill in the little gaps in between the ears just here. So it's almost like a little semicircle. Once you've finished that, you can just give your brushes a good wash in your water again. We're now going to move on to painting in this little section here where the nose and the mouth is going to go. So I'm going to go for a really pastel sort of yellowy orange colour. So I'm going to start predominantly with white as my base. I'm then going to add the tiniest bit of yellow to it and also the tiniest bit of red, and I'm going to give that mix. So with this colour, all we want to make sure is that it is really different to the colour that we've used for the face, just so it stands out. So I'm just going to keep adding some more white to it until I've really lightened it up. And as soon as you're happy, I'm just going to fill in this little oval here. You can actually overlap some of the face as well. And the great thing about this is if you feel like the colour is too similar to the face, you can always change up your colour and just go over it again afterwards. You can just layer the paint. So sometimes it's a little bit of trial and error until you're happy with the colour that you're using. Once you're happy with that nose section, we're just going to wash off our little brush in the water and give it a dry on our kitchen towel, because we're now going to move on to creating the colour that we're going to use for our cheeks. So I'm going to go for a really pale baby pink colour. Again, I'm going to start with some white as the base, just moving some of the white over to a different area on my palette. And then I'm just going to add a tiny little bit of pink to this. If you haven't got pink paint, then don't worry, you can just add a little bit of red paint to the white and that will make a pink colour as well. So I'm just going to pick up a blob of this paint with the end of my brush, and then moving back over to my canvas, I'm just going to find the sort of area between the mouth section and the side of the head, and I'm just going to do a little pink circle. And then going to do exactly the same on the other side, so just picking up some more paint, and I'm just going to try and make it equal on the other side. Again, just give your brush a good wash in your water. I'm now just going to give that area of our painting some time to dry. So what I'm going to do is move on to painting in our background. So this is the fun bit, because you can pick any shade of colour that you like. You might want to pick your favourite colour, you might want to pick the theme that you've got for your bedroom, or if you're giving this as a gift to someone, you might want to pick their favourite colour. So I think for me, what I'm going to go for is a sort of turquoise shade. So I'm going to mix that up now. I'm going to use my sort of bigger brush to create this. And to start with, I want to have quite a lot of white as my base. So I'm just scooping up this white. I've got a little bit of yellow in there, but I don't actually mind that I've got some yellow in there. So I'm just moving that white over to a different dish on my palette. And we want to make sure we're mixing up enough paint, because we want to cover the whole background of our canvas with this colour. So just make sure that you're mixing up plenty of this. And then to that white, I'm going to scoop up some blue paint. I'm going to move it over there. And then I'm going to scoop up a tiny little bit of this green. And I'm just using a tiny bit because this is quite a dark green. And then I'm just going to move that green over, and I'm going to give this a really good mix and see what colour I come up with. So I am happy with this colour that I've got here. All I'm going to do is add a few drops of water to it, just like we've been doing with our other paint, and giving it a really good mix in. Whenever you're ready, you can just take this colour that you've just created, and we're just going to carefully fill in the whole of the background. So what I like to do is I like to use my bigger brush, but then I actually like to swap to a slightly smaller brush, just where I'm going to get the paint in between the lion's mane, so you can be a little bit more careful. So I would just switch between your different brushes depending on which area of your background that you're doing. And remember as well, you can also paint the sides of your canvas and the top as well. So just spend some time filling in that whole area. And remember, if you don't like the paint colour that you've created and you want to make it a little bit lighter or a little bit darker, you can always just mix up some more colour on your palette and go back over, covering it all up. So just take your time with this, filling it all in. As soon as you're happy with your background, we can just wash our brushes that we've just used. We're now going to go ahead and add in the final details for our lion. So this will be the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and also the whiskers. So you have a choice now, because if you don't want to use paint to do this, because you think it might be a little bit too fiddly, you can always use a black felt tip pen or a black marker pen. It's totally up to you. They both work really well instead of the paint if you want to use them. I'm going to be sticking with black paint, so I'm going to be showing you how I do that now. And if you wanted to use the pens, you can just follow along with the same shapes, but instead of using the paint, you're using the pens. So with my smaller brush, I'm just going to add a little bit of water to my black paint, because this just helps it thin it out and it makes it easier for us to draw nice, precise lines and shapes with it. I'm also just going to dash off any excess paint on the side of my palette. I even like to twizzle my paintbrush just to make sure it comes to a nice point. I'm going to start by painting in my eyes so I can actually see the little dots that I did originally. So I'm just going to go over them now, just in a very small circle-like shape. I'm now also going to draw in my nose, which, if you remember, is a little bit like an upside down triangle shape, and it's just got curved edges. So I'm going to paint that in carefully now. Now just going to paint in the mouth. So I'm going to do a J shape, which comes down from the base of the nose, curves round to the left, and then I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side. So it comes down and then curves around to the right. Just going to paint in some whiskers, which come off the sides where the cheeks are. So I'm going to start there, and then they sort of flick out to the side. So as a last finishing touch, if we want to, what you can do is you can just give your lion a little belly like this. So we can do this in a similar colour that we've done for this part of the mouth. So I'm just going to pick up one of my brushes, and I'm just going to mix up some more of that colour now. So it was a very, very pastel, yellowy peach colour. So it was mostly white. I'm just being careful and picking up the white and not the blue. Just going to add a tiny little bit of yellow to it and a tiny little bit of red. I'm going to give it a good mix. And with this shade, I'm just going to draw in that sort of shape just coming down from underneath the mane, and it's going to swoop around, and it's actually going to come a little bit off the end of my canvas, and then I'm going to fill it all in. Once you've finished adding in all of the details that you wish, you have then completed your lion masterpiece. If you're having fun with your painting and you don't want to stop, then don't forget that you can add a few different patterns or a few dots or zigzags to your background, just so that you can carry on painting and add a little bit more detail to your masterpieces. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. Bye!